Hi everyone, welcome back to Fire Biscuit Gaming. This is Johan, and today I want to talk about the long tail in application development, what that means for your release processes, as well as your coding style. First, let's start with some numbers. If you know, I've been working at Google for 5 years now, and on a lot of mobile applications inside and outside Google, and the pattern that I've observed is the same in and out. The pattern being that a lot of people do not update their apps. So let's say you build an app, you launch it, you're happy, and then you start building more and more features. And then you will realize quickly that more than half of your users are still using version 1 and you're at version 50 by now. So in my case, for one of our apps, out of let's say 100 million users, more than half of them are using a 2-year-old version of the app. And the remaining half, another half of that, so about 75% of our users are running a version that's 6 months or later behind the current head of the app, the latest release. And what that means is that for the last 2 years of work that me and my team have done on these apps, most of the users, a majority of them, have not seen any of the new features that we've released. So now that you know that, what does that mean? Well, that means that your broken code will stay broken for a long time, right? So if the code is broken in the hands of your users for whatever reason, they might not update. They might not have a good connectivity to update. They might not want to update. Maybe they don't have enough storage on the phone to even install a second app while they're updating the old one. And so there are many reasons why people don't update, but the fact is they do not update. So knowing that, how do you fix the situation? How do you address it or mitigate it? The first thing you need to do though, before you do anything else, when you start a new app project, is you create a remote configuration that you store on your server that will contain the minimum required version of your app to run. What that means is, if you haven't seen my video yet on the remote config, you can check it out. I have a link in the description, but the idea is you store some data files, can be JSON, can be XML, whatever format you want, on the server that contains a version number. And every time the app starts, in the background, it will check with the server, am I running the right version? Am I below the minimum required version? And if that's the case, the app will show an annoying pop-up asking the user to upgrade, or even break the app altogether if you're trying to force an upgrade due to a severe bug or a vulnerability in the app. For instance, users might risk losing their data or people stealing their data and stuff like this. So in that case, you might want to use what we call a kill switch, where you say, just kill yourself, force the user to upgrade. So very basic thing you should do when you start a new application project, move that requirement to the server so that you can change it. Why would you do that too? There are other reasons than just breaking the app or forcing an upgrade. Is even on the server side, you design a bunch of APIs to power the content of your app, and you'll be using servers to do that. And maybe someday you want to upgrade these APIs, and maybe you want to deprecate old ones and even remove them or delete them. Well, if you have half of your user base still using these APIs from 2 years ago, then good luck trying to deprecate and remove those servers or change these databases that are powering these APIs. It's very painful. So sometimes you have to force upgrade everybody to a more recent version of the app so that you can also update your backend and your API layer. So remember this. First thing you do when you start an app project, make sure you have some kind of kill switch or a minimum version required that's served by the server. It does not have to prevent the user from fetching the data, so from using the app while the data is being fetched, but the next time the user starts the app, they should have the data cached locally, and the app can check against it and decide to show an annoying pop-up, or just kill itself or break itself. Now, knowing that your binary, any code that you have on the client side, on the mobile device, will not be updated for a long time, well, it makes you think hard about what kind of code you want to put into the client. So if you have a lot of apps actually need to change the theme of the app, let's say it's a seasonal theme like Christmas or whatever, you want to change that theme. Don't hope that you can push an update of assets a month earlier before Christmas and then most of our users will have updated by then. That will not happen. So if you're anticipating that you will want to be providing that kind of flexibility inside of your app, you have to serve them from the server, and then that logic should be baked in from the start. Otherwise, your users will not have access to these new features or new theme or assets that you've planned on pushing in the seasonal update. So that means when you code, think about what if that line of code that I'm writing right now is going to be stuck in time for 2 years and I can't change it. Well, that makes you think hard about what lines of code you want to write. And that makes you think hard about how much flexibility should you bake into the app from the start. So moving things to server is the best way to control some of that. Of course, you cannot move everything to server, otherwise it's not an app, it's a website. So you have to be selective about what you move to the server. But you can say, some of my flows, I want them to be more flexible, so I could move those flows to the server. That means the server might serve a list of actions and the order of those actions in these flows. I can move assets of my app to the server. It can be, the UI elements, the icons, and you could serve these assets based on seasons, also based on geo. So if you are in Europe or Asia or US, you might serve a different set of assets. So the server could choose that and serve that to the user based on IP addresses, for example. And you can also serve behavior from the server. So there are a lot of frameworks today on Android or iOS that allow you to download libraries or DLCs from the server that can be written in Lua or Java or JavaScript that you can download and change the behavior of some of the flows of your app by downloading it from the server. So this is really powerful. A lot of game developers actually use this. You can download. So the app will start, and then very often when you start a game, you see downloading assets or downloading whatever and libraries. And maybe sometimes it takes 15 minutes because they push so much since then. So, okay, let me just recap before we close up. Your code will stay in this app for a long time. So if it's broken, it will stay broken for a long time. So think really hard about what kind of code you're willing to freeze in time for 2 years or maybe more inside of these apps. 2 is make sure that you have a way to force upgrade everyone to a more recent version in case a critical bug or critical issue shows up and you need people to upgrade. Or simply because maybe versions of the app are incompatible with your new APIs or your new systems that you really want to migrate to. And then finally, the code is frozen in time, so don't freeze too much code in time. Try to be flexible about what you can serve from your server. It can be code, it can be assets, it can be entire libraries, or it can just be configuration values and flags. All right, so that's it for today. Think about it really hard in your app development. I know I've been beaten by this many times in the past, and then after a couple times I say, okay, next app I build, every single app after that I will put some remote config in there to make sure I can force upgrade. Whatever happens, I can always ask the app to brick itself, and then the user will just go and download the latest version whenever it's convenient. Okay, be mindful about how you do this, but sometimes it's very necessary. All right, hope it's useful. Thank you, and see you in the next one.